So today, a dude named Soham got exposed online for working at 3 to 4 startups at a time, and nobody could have guessed when this first broke the news that it would get as crazy as it did. Like, the rabbit hole goes deep with this dude. So it all started with Suhail, who's a pretty prominent figure on Twitter when it comes to startups, and he created a post that said, PSA, there's a guy named Soham in India who works at 3 to 4 startups at the same time. He's been preying on YC companies and more. Beware. I fired this guy in his first week and told him to stop lying/scamming people. He hasn't stopped a year later. No more excuses. Now, if this sounds wild to you, you should know that this isn't some brand new thing, especially when COVID was going on and most work was remote. The overemployed community was crazy. I talked to some people on Discord that were working at 4 to 5 companies at the same time. There's even a whole Discord for this type of thing where one dude I saw posting about talking about how he had 10 full-time jobs at the same time. They don't even do things like outsource the work necessarily. A lot of times they'll filter out the jobs that they get for jobs that are super slow that you can sort of coast on and maybe do one thing a week for that might take an hour. And then once you stagger them well enough, you can have a bunch of these full-time incomes, and a lot of them just end up retiring early because of it. I even worked with a dude that was doing the overemployed thing, and it was super annoying to work with him because he would need me to cover for him for a lot of the meetings he couldn't make and to do a lot of the work that he was doing because he had deadlines on his other project. Now, what makes Soham different is that he's built almost a notoriety for doing this kind of thing with a ton of different companies, and he specifically targets YC founders who are pretty young, probably have never hired an engineer before, and don't really know the difference because they've never even worked as an engineer at a company before, between an engineer that actually gets stuff done and someone who is just sort of coasting. And the comment section went wild with this guy. You have the CEO of Kuey Roy talking about how he interviewed the dude just yesterday. A lot of people have come out and said that they've actually worked with him and it was absolutely terrible and he gets fired within a month. But the whole deal is he gets like 4 to 5 jobs at a time, works a month, and even if he gets fired at half of those jobs and keeps the other half, he is pulling in bank at these companies. Now, at this point, a lot of you are probably wondering how he was able to do something like this. Like, how is this dude actually getting all of these jobs when most engineers can't even seem to get an interview? And the answer is actually a pretty simple one. He just lies on his resume like a shit ton. His resume actually got posted, and you can see here he has some pretty interesting experience on it. A lot of it is like as a senior role or a lead role at pretty notable startups in the Bay Area, as well as saying he got his master's in computer science for Georgia Institute of Technology, which is pretty impressive. And Suhail points out that probably 90% of it is actually fake. And a very common story is when he gets to the actual interviews, he's blown people away. I've seen around 4 or 5 people say that when he is doing interviews, he does amazingly, and that's how he lands a job. And I guess if you're constantly doing interviews for a ton of jobs every single month because you're just cycling through them, you probably get to the point where you're pretty damn good at interviewing. And while some people manage to catch him in the reference check phase before he actually gets the job, a lot of them end up firing him a month later when absolutely no work gets done. But like I said, he doesn't need to get any of the work done because he is getting paid for that month he is there. And if he can convince a young founder that doesn't know any different that things are getting done, or that he can't do things because of excuses, the longer he can just coast at that role, the better. For example, at one of the places he worked at, he used to guilt trip his manager into why he's being so slow with his PR, blaming it on things like the war between India and Pakistan, even though he was a bit far from the conflict. Here's a screenshot of some messages where he told his manager that they shot a drone down 10 minutes away from his house and that his life was physically in danger, and that is why he could not submit his PRs. FYI, they shot a drone in the air near my house 10 minutes away. Holy shit, is everything okay? Yes, but some damage to the building around the house. Bro, can you get out? We have, but I've been told not to get out, but I have the power and internet. Flights are impacted. We had a ceasefire. And this is far from probably the only excuse this guy used. I also saw another article I couldn't find where he talked about either his sister or a family member having some sort of medical diagnosis which prevented him from getting his work done on time. And I guess the longer you could just string these out before somebody loses their patience and finally fires you is more than enough time to rake in a ton of money. Now, I've seen some pretty crazy comments about the situation. One of them like, oh, well, why do you care if he's working at 10 companies if he's getting his job done? Number one, he's not getting shit done. And number two, if you were hiring an engineer and you had to choose between a dude that was pretty good and was going to work at your company or a dude that was pretty good and working at 10 other companies, which one would you choose? Now, I'm not picking up for the side of the companies here, but it's just common sense at this point. It baffles me how hard it is for a lot of people to put themselves in other people's shoes. Think for a moment, if they were the person's manager or they were the person hiring, is that something you would want in an applicant, especially when you have so many other options available to you? Now, the other really ignorant thing I've seen is somebody saying, oh, that's what you get for seeking cheap labor. And in response, it's just like, our offer was $150K to $200K plus equity. And I want to make it abundantly clear, just because they are hiring someone that they think is from India, which by the way, apparently he lied on a lot of his applications about his location. So a lot of these people probably didn't even know he was in India to begin with. A lot of the better companies are companies that are trying to be very forward and will eventually offer someone from India or somewhere around the world to come work in office with them and sponsor a visa for them. Actually pay a decent amount, and they don't lower it artificially because of the cost of living in the country that they are hiring from. So yeah, this guy was making bank even by American standards by doing this. And it's not just the candidates that have been going crazy in the comment section, but we have some companies as well. This dude Connor, I don't know if this is satire or not, but he runs a company called Hyperspell, and he pinned a post where he quoted, I think, Warren Buffett that said, "Be greedy when others are fearful." As in, when everyone else fears getting this guy on their team, this is the dude we should be hiring. Hi Soham, saw that you've worked with quite a few successful startups and heard you might be on the market. We're hiring engineers right now. Let me know if you're open to a casual chat next week. Yup, I did the same thing and asked if he's interested in filling 3 to 5 of our open roles. And I do think this is just satire and probably just an intention grab. Also, the dude's been posting about it all day, trying to reap in on the clout, even tagging Soham himself. And he actually went on to address the whole controversy, saying there's a lot being said about me right now and most of you don't know the full story. If there's one thing to know about me, it's that I love to build. That's it. I've been isolated, written off, and shut out by nearly everyone I've known and every company I've worked at, but building is the only thing I've ever truly known, and it's what I'll keep doing. Earlier today, I signed an exclusive founding deal to be the founding engineer at one company and one company only. They were the only ones willing to bet on me at this time. The team is cracked, they back misfits, and they're building something absolutely insane in the video AI space. We're launching at the end of this month. More details tomorrow in my TBPN interview. I'm pissed and I've got something to prove. Soham. First of all, the fact that this dude managed to turn this situation around and play the victim here is a great example of how he was able to land all these roles in the first place. The dude is like an A+ master manipulator. And it's like wild to me that he says, "You don't know the full story. I'm not going to give it to you. I'm the victim. I'm going to join this thing of misfits and I love to build." It seems like the only thing he's been building is his stack of cash, promising companies he'd do work for them and delivering absolutely nothing. Either that, or maybe he's just building the giant fairy tale in his mind of how he is the victim in a situation where he was working at 3 to 5 companies at a time, doing absolutely nothing for all of them, making up random excuses and blatantly lying to people despite being caught and being told to get his shit together until finally he gets exposed and now he is the victim. I think you have to be so good at reframing a situation and gaslighting people that you've gotten to the point where you've gaslit yourself into believing you actually are not the one at fault here. But then even crazier that he's getting real opportunities from other companies trying to hire him. And I really do think it's mostly for the clout. I think companies have seen what Kuey has done and they're like, oh shit, it turns out there's no such thing as bad publicity. So we're going to hire the dude that has a lot of eyes on him right now to get some eyes on our product. And I didn't even want to give this company any notoriety to begin with, but it turns out he announced that it's some company called Darwin Studios, and they've stood by him since the story broke yesterday, whatever the fuck that's supposed to mean. And if there's one question I have for this guy is that if you're gonna stand by him for what he did, why did you give him an exclusivity clause at your company? Like, if you truly stand by what he did and you believe that it is right, why are you not allowing him to do it while he works at your company? You're pretty much like, yeah, dude, I don't care that you scammed all these other companies out of their money. You know, I stand by you. You don't believe all the hate you're getting, but don't do that shit around here. So yeah, I'm pretty fucking sure this is all some giant publicity play. I think Soham wants to be like the next Roy Lee. And I'm not a lawyer, but it feels like all he did was something that would be comparable to committing fraud in my opinion. And now he's getting a ton of backlash and like the notoriety is getting to his head. So yeah, if I had to take a bet on how Darwin Studios is going to do with this hire, I'd be willing to bet against the company. And just goes to show that we are entering the era of the internet where there's so much noise out there that any publicity seems to be good publicity. If you want funding, start doing a bunch of shit that gets people talking about it. If you want a job, do something so outrageous that you get canceled by a ton of people, and eventually there'll be that one person who wants to cash in on that notoriety and will hire you instead. So yeah, make sure you subscribe, and if you want to talk about it, I have a Discord community below that you can join, and I'll see you guys in the next video.